get a small team together of people, like-minded people, who are passionate about your film.
You write from your heart and passion and instinct first and foremost. You're going to tap into some universal stuff.
Don't show guns.
Comedy tells the truth, and specifically it tells the truth about people.
There's a lot of talented people that never make it because they don't understand the business.
Today's episode of Rolling Tape is all about the green screen, that is.
This episode is brought to you by GlideCam Stabilizers. A GlideCam on your production means smooth, flowing shots with easy operation. Go to glidecam.com to find out more.
Michele Yamazaki Terpstra is the co-author of the book Greenscreen Made, Easy Keying and Compositing Techniques for Indie Filmmakers, and she's also a plug-inologist at toolfarm.com. Welcome to the show, Michele.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's talk a little bit about green screen post-production. What is involved with that?
Well, there's several steps in the whole post-production process. First, you have the pre-process step, which is what I'm really going to talk about today. Then you have your process of keying, and then you have your process of compositing, and that involves matching your colors and making sure it looks good with your background. You're matching your noise and grain and all that good stuff. But today I was going to talk about the pre-process steps, which are things that people don't really think about nearly as much, but are really important. The first thing is to edit the footage first. And this is because you don't want to end up with a whole bunch of footage that you're not going to need and do all this extra work that you don't have to do. So that'd be my first tip. Get your shots edited first, at least a rough cut. It doesn't have to be exact, but otherwise you're just going to spend way too much time figuring it all out and taking up space on your drive and all that. And that's just no good. The second thing to do each time you're going to be keying a shot, you really need to scrutinize your shot. You need to really take a look at that shot clearly and what are you dealing with? Are you dealing with a lot of movement? Do you have motion blur in your shot? How is it shot? What are you going to run into? A lot of noise, shadows in your background that are, going to be interfering with your shot. Do you have reflection? Just take a good look at your shot. And the third thing is to de-interlace your shot. This isn't really a huge issue these days because so many people are shooting progressive, but once in a while you come up with interlaced footage. And, especially if you're using archive footage or older footage and that kind of thing, it's not likely you'd have green screen with that, but it's something to keep in mind, because if you've ever keyed footage that you have not de-interlaced first, oh, it's a nightmare. I remember doing that one of my first shots at my old company. It was like 15, 20 years ago. And I learned quickly, very, very quickly. The next thing is to denoise and de-artifact your footage. You can have noise from a number of things, low light. You can have noise from compression, from bringing it in or artifacting. And so that's something that you want to take care of, because you really want a clean shot, especially around your edges when you're keying. You don't want to have all this noise that can cause all sorts of problems. So that's something you want to really have a look at before you start your process. There's a lot of great tools out there for denoising and de-artifacting your footage. A lot of the noise is often in the blue channel. So there's a few things you can do. You could just put a slight blur on the blue channel, but you want to be really, really careful and use a light touch here, because if you go overboard, your footage will be blurry and it's hard to key blurred footage. Plus it just looks bad when everything else is sharp. So AB Soft Neat Video is a great tool, and it works in a ton of different programs. And that does a nice job of removing noise without compromising the sharpness of your footage. So that's one I would recommend. There are several others. Red Giant has a tool for that. Oh boy, Revision Effects. There's a bunch of tools out there that you can use. Then the next, I guess this would be number 5 thing to look out for, is to even out your green screen. And this isn't a huge thing if you don't do it, because the next step would be using a garbage mat. But if you're evening out your green screen, say you have shadows at the bottom, your background is unevenly lit, you want to make that a little more even, it'll be easier to key if you have dark spots. Now this is really only an issue near the outline of your actor or your subject if it's not an actor in the film. So you just want to make sure it's a little more even so that you can key it better, easier. It makes the process a little bit easier, less work. And
by evening out the green screen, the way I understand is because when you get shadows, you get different colors of green. Is that what's causing it?
When you have shadow, this footage has no shadows whatsoever. This is stock media, and I have a feeling that it is pre-keyed, and so that's why it's so perfectly smooth. But what you get is, say up here on the man, you'd see behind his head, you would see lighter, it would be brighter from the light, and then down here where you don't have as much light, it would be darker. So when you're keying, this green and this green wouldn't match, so the sample that you're taking would just be different, and then so you'd have to just make a larger sample, that kind of thing. It's a little difficult it's easier to show than to explain.
Right.
But I was going to show how to make a garbage man in a minute. Let me just scrub through this footage here so you can see this man's dancing all over. And he's not walking through the screen or anything like that. I have some footage like that. This is a pretty darn long shot, so we won't do the whole thing. But I'm going to use a Wacom tablet here. It's just easier. And I'll use the pen tool to draw a mask. I'm at the first frame here. Quite often what you want to do is to find the areas where he's moving the most, like one point where he's moving to one extreme and another point where he's moving to another extreme. And but for this, I'll just draw a loose mask around him. This is pretty loose. There are fancier ways that you can make really tight masks, but this is your most basic. So there's my mask, and I want to keyframe this. This would be the same in pretty much any program you're using that you're going to be creating masks. So I'm just going to do 5 seconds of this. So let me just set my composition for 5 seconds long. So here he is, and then I just want to move the mask along to where he is and grab the mask in groups. And just make sure he stays within the mask. Oops.
And what program is this that you're using?
This is Adobe After Effects.
Okay.
And it's a great tool for compositing and keying, and there are so many keyers for it. So I'm just moving this around. This is probably not the best example of how I'm doing this, but
no, but it gets the idea. I follow what you're doing there.
So the idea then, after I set some basic points, is to bisect the timeline. So what I do is find a point halfway in between and make sure my points are okay. These are a little far out here. You really want to grab them in groups. It just keeps it a little bit neater. And then I go to a halfway point here, make sure everything looks good, go to a halfway point, and just keep bisecting the area to make sure that he stays within the mask. And I'm not cutting off like a corner of his arm here or the top of his head. But you generally want to bisect. So you'd go halfway to your halfway point, adjust as necessary, go halfway between that, adjust as necessary, and just keep going back and forth until you have a mask. And that way, all of your in-betweens are done, so you're not doing it frame by frame. So it moves quite a bit faster this way. And it looks like he's in pretty good shape. So if I did everything else, if went through and make sure that, the shot was edited and de-interlaced if I needed it to, and evened out, then I'm pretty much ready to go here and I can start keying. And all I needed to do then to key is to remove this green around him. I don't have to worry about anything out here. Oh, where am I?
Yeah, you got it. We got you on the screen now.
Oh, am I on the screen? Okay,
You're on
sorry.
the screen now. Yeah.
This
No,
is
that was
my first time doing this.
That was a nice tutorial. I want to thank you and plug the book.
Oh, and Greenscreen Made Easy. I have a copy of it right here. And it's available now. It'll be on Amazon. I think the 10th. Is today the 10th?
Yes, it is.
Well, I think it's out today then on
Wow.
Amazon.
Well, how timely was this interview?
It was.
And that's the second edition of
This
the
is
book,
the second
so.
edition, yes.
All right,
So
Michelle.
my co-author is Jeremy Hanke, so I want to give a shout out to Jeremy. He wrote the first half of the book, and he was great to work with.
and
And I want to
have
thank the
Jeremy on.
publisher as well. So
All righty. Thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate you coming on Rolling Tape today.
thank you.
The versatile, lightweight GlideCam stabilizer. A GlideCam on your production means smooth, flowing video with easy operation. GlideCam, the name and future of camera stabilizers.